Was it all for St. Patrick's Day? Are they all doing like an
Yeah, it's
early,
all St. Patrick's Day.
or was it for something more special that everybody seems to have forgotten? Anybody know? Do you know what day it is? None of your brothers knew either.
Wait a minute. Are you talking about National Pancake Day? Is that a...
No, but I did like that article.
Yeah.
Something closer to home, something more important on March 16th.
Oh, it's today's Bo's birthday?
Yes, it is.
It is Bo's
Yes, it
birthday.
is.
Okay.
And he's a little hurt. He's not coming on the camera.
Where's
He's off
my
to the
Bobo?
side. He's on the floor. He's a little upset because nobody has contacted him.
I did
Nobody's
not realize.
called. Dana, the groomer, has wished him.
Wow, really?
Okay, yes. I was going to send her a text and say, well, he got home late last night from a doggy bar crawl with a couple poodles, so I'll let him know later when he wakes up.
That's funny.
But I didn't bother. I don't think she knows me that well. And, of course, the vet wished him a happy birthday, and that's it. Dad and me. Nobody else remembered. Shame on you all.
I forget that we celebrate
Shame,
Bo's birthday.
shame.
Is he getting a cake and stuff tonight?
I bought him a slice that says happy birthday in blue. I'll take a picture and send it to you. We got one thing of toys and we decorated the kitchen. That's about it. Dad wants to make a mistake tonight for dinner. So
Whoa.
yeah, big night, big day.
When you have no kids in the house, this is what we do. I just
Big
grab
number
water.
11. Big number 11.
Let's get this party started.
National Pancake Day. I'm loving it.
You want to start with that one? You want to get the silly ones out of the way?
Well, that one's silly. Are you
Silly
kidding
ones,
me?
the non-political. I
I
mean,
want to know why we're not over in London to mark the day in your Pancake 101 shirt, my cake shop.
I know. Where's screen to go live? I mean, crowds cheer. I'm just glad that they made a holiday about me. I like that we're getting so well known. But I was laughing at. I mean, I love the costumes that they made. So I didn't. Of course, this is the one I actually forgot to read of the one that I sent you because I was going through them before. I don't know. I know it's a pancake frying competition, but I don't know what the point of it is. Like,
Well, it marks the start of Lent.
right.
So celebrated as Mardi Gras or Fat Tuesday in other parts of the world. They call it the Shrove Tuesday. The English word meaning to seek forgiveness or be granted absolution. I don't know what that has to do with pancakes,
I know.
but
Listen,
It's a
I'm not complaining. Yeah, I feel like first off, I should definitely be a judge if there's a tasting competition. That should definitely be me and only me. But it does seem like I don't know what the significance of the costumes are.
no, I don't know.
It's just we were bored, so let's just. I mean, what is this? What is this?
Big Ben, maybe a clock
That's
tower.
Big Ben.
It's supposed to be probably a building. Maybe it's this building in London. They got some funky buildings over there.
This guy's
Look
a
at the guy in front of
table.
them, just like a dresser.
Yeah, dresser. We got to. That's so London. You know, that's. But I like the people that came. This guy's serious. This is the guy that's like, I'm gonna make the best goddamn pancake the world's ever seen.
He's a chef. He's coming as a chef. He's not denying it. He's a chef.
I want to know how long
That
the
was a
run is.
table.
How long's the run?
I read some of it, but I didn't get all of it. Lemons to go. Who puts lemons on their pancake? All right there. I'm done. Clockmakers timed the races while the fruiterers provided the lemons.
The British are fucking weird.
Look at his. That looks more like a crepe than a pancake.
No,
Look at
that's
that
just a
thing.
crap pancake. This has been first run was 1445.
Yeah, amazing, huh?
My God, the traditional guard represents the livery companies. Did I say that right? Historic guilds or
livery.
trades associated with existing for almost 1,000 years.
Yeah, livery was originally, horse and carriage, and now it's probably their taxis. Anybody who's involved in transportation, livery.
Yeah, I do like
1,000
this
years.
though. I would go so hard in this. I'd be the.
All right, well,
Guess
when we're rolling in the dough, we'll have to do we'll have to do a recording from there.
we'll get. Oh yeah, we'll do that, and then we'll have to get the. We'll get viewers to do it here in America, and then we'll get like a whole get together. Loser gets shot. What?
Yes. Loser gets shot.
Whoever makes the
Hunger
worst.
Games.
Whoever worst. In old London fashion, worst pancake gets guillotined, or that's France, right? France did the guillotines.
France had the guillotine, but yeah, they cut the heads off in London too.
Oh yeah, they do.
Did that one with the sword in the old day. We'll have Sue Aunt Sue can do the pancakes. We'll have her run in costume. She's big into both things, costumes and cooking. So
That's my end. Well, while these people are taking in all the carbs, how about we talk about the fasting, intermittent fasting link between Alzheimer's? Thought this was interesting.
Yes.
Now, so I've been intermittent fasting since I was a junior in college. I know we've talked about it, but reading this article, I was hoping they would tell me like, oh, I'm not going to have Alzheimer's, but that's not really what this is about, right? It's preventative. If you already have Alzheimer's, it causes a
reset.
Basically,
of the circadian clock.
Yeah, it's really not so much that the fasting's doing anything, or like that's the goal. The goal is to fix the circadian rhythm.
As far as we know, we didn't have the surge in Alzheimer's. Couple reasons: people didn't live that long. Now we're getting at a younger age, and also before modern day, people didn't eat at night. Remember how time we've had this discussion? Nobody had late night snacks. Nobody was eating at night. So you didn't even have power for lights. So people went to bed early and they got up early with the sunrise. There's your intermittent fasting, right?
Yeah.
We're just going back to what we used to do. People ate when they were hungry, not all the time. And you usually ate when you're exerting the most calories, which was during the day, right? When you're running around hunting, gathering, going to work, whatever. Part of this explosion. And I also question, even though they did this with mice, and I'm sure they were careful with the diet involved, I wonder how much of it in humans is the quality of the food. So if you're cutting back on what used to be processed foods and garbage that we're eating, as we're finding out, I wonder if that has to do with it too. Intermittent fasting is not just circadian or reset, but also you're putting less of the garbage in your body at night.
You know what's also crazy? I saw a thing, speaking of processed foods. Did you know that there's a chemical in Cheetos that they put, I forget what it's called, but they put it on mice and it makes their skin transparent?
Ugh.
Like,
it doesn't surprise
that to me, I was like, whoa, I got to stop eating Cheetos. Not that I eat that many Cheetos to begin with, but then I go, what the hell else is in Cheetos? But I did see Cheetos mac and cheese the other day, and I was like, "Ooh, I probably could rip that one."
I'll tell you, I'm totally into I never was an organic person, and I don't believe in the organic. Fortunately, we don't need to eat organic in our house. Like nobody has an allergy of any sort. But the more I've been hearing about how they process foods, and they're not really. I was ignorant to all the things involved, and I think by design, people were kept ignorant about it. These companies that no longer needed to do work with pesticides and whatnot decided, okay, let's go into the food business and started putting all these additives and stuff in foods. I think that's when we started to see the decline in the quality of foods. And by the way, the explosion in obesity in this country. I'm the first one to say obesity isn't just about eating. I think it's what people are eating. And I think a lot of it is these processed foods. Same thing about kids being very sick from a young age. We're eating more of that stuff, and it's no one's fault other than it's easier to throw, processed foods in the microwave. Parents work. They can't cook a meal from scratch. Having said that, I think that has a lot to do with it, with what some of these people struggle with. The timing, we never used to eat at night, and food used to be cooked pretty pure.
Yeah.
So
I also think when you see those like Freshly or HelloFresh, where they give these foods to you at the door because it's kind of a fast meal if you don't have the time to cook, and they claim it's healthy. I think they add a lot of preservatives to stuff like that in order to keep it fresh a little longer while it's traveling. And then I'm sure those are tested and stuff, but those are new companies, and you know how long it takes to really see the side effects or after effects of eating even the smallest processed foods. It's not fantastic.
Right, and even if they are relatively fresh, like I had brown rice today. It was prepackaged, vacuum sealed, and I looked at the container, and on it said there are no preservatives, nothing in here. So that means it has a short shelf life. So for all these processed foods that come in the mail, or I should say processed foods, like you said, these HelloFresh and whatnot, if they're not filled with preservatives, they're going to be expensive because you have to turn them around quickly.
Right.
And you can't know that, if you can't shelve it and grab and go for people who buy it, and it has to be that fresh, you got to pay for that luxury. Right. So they're not going to be cheap.
Well, going back to what we were just talking about with the Alzheimer's, it seems like they're talking more about just the eating habits of eating within a window rather than what it's actually. I mean, obviously processed foods aren't good for you to begin with, but what they're doing is they're basically trying to stop the digestive process because it stops not stop it, but basically I think there's still some question about how long it takes to actually digest food. Like the theory of right when you go in the ocean, or if you eat, you're not supposed to be in a pool for 30 minutes. Right? Remember that
Yeah.
little myth? I don't think
Yeah.
that's. I think they disprove that heavily. I think it's a lot longer than 30 minutes to digest. I believe it's.
Right.
I think it's 2 to 3 hours
Mhm.
to fully digest food. So the reason that they do this is because that way you're not digesting while you're sleeping still. So that's why they have
Right.
a cutoff time and keeping it within an eating window to bring down these amyloid proteins in the brain, which is what actually causes the buildup of Alzheimer's. So they're
Okay.
seeing a lot of, um, I guess progress is the right word, but they're not saying that they're 100% sure that this is going to work for everyone yet. So they're still doing their studies. And I know that I, I know that we test on rats and mice, mostly mice. I always wonder why, I wonder why they're so close to us similarly with medications and stuff. If that's the answer of why we test them so much, or is it just because they reproduce so fast? So that's
No,
why
they
they're not.
genetically, yeah, genetically they have their systems are very similar to ours in mice. I'm not rats I think too, in terms of how they process things. That's why they tend to do a lot of
Oh, okay. I've always
experiments
wondered.
on mice. There's a genetic component that or physiological component that mimics humans, which that of itself is kind of freaky to me. But um, yeah, you would think like what would we have in common? But yes, I think we were listening to Rogan, and he was making a comment to I forget who he was talking to, Woody Harrelson, but just
Woody.
how many things we benefit from fasting, how intermittent fasting is very healthful for individuals. And I used to poo poo it, not so much poo poo it when you guys did it, but we were always of the mindset you got to eat every 2 hours to keep your metabolism going. That's what we were
Maybe
taught
if
when
you're a
you're dieting.
bodybuilder, but goddamn, 2 hours every
No,
day.
no, no. No, it wasn't not full meals.
Yeah, you
You should
snacked.
always eat something, even if it's like 5 crackers or something, just to keep the metabolism. Okay, now we're wondering if that's really true or if people just abuse that process. I think everybody's metabolism is different. We know that. And as you age, it changes. But we do know that people were not as sick, as far as we know, when we lived at a time where people ate non processed foods and they went to bed at a normal time and they were not eating into the wee hours. There was no run to McDonald's at 10 o'clock at night.
There are
There was
guys
no
at my gym,
right.
mom, who they will eat while lifting, and I mean full meals. And I'm like, how do you do that?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
would gag. I'd be like, ugh. And I'm not talking like, mom. Imagine a meal bigger than what I normally eat, and you know how much.
But here's the thing, I don't know that that necessarily means just because you're muscular you're healthier.
Well, they're just trying to put on muscle, so they're trying to just
Right.
gain
So
calories.
yeah,
But I was like,
yeah. I
oh
mean,
man.
and that's you can make the case that for girls who people who want to be skinny, they throw up and they don't eat. That's the other side of the spectrum. I don't know that healthy is somewhere in the middle. That's what I'm saying. Just because
Well,
they're doing that to put on muscle, I mean, that's what you have to do if you want to put on muscle, but that doesn't mean the rest of you is healthy. It's
yeah.
great to have muscle, but nothing to an extreme. If that's what they want to do, that's their business. If somebody wants to starve herself to death, it's a sad thing. But in the mindset, that doesn't mean either person's healthy just because she's skinny and she doesn't eat at all. That's 100% fasting. That's not good either. You need that happy medium. And overall, for a normal society, now think about it. Food companies, they want you eating all the time because that's how they make money.
Hmm. Well, all I know is that I gotta get skinny for this gala in a couple weeks, so I'm ripping them in the bathroom after.
Okay. All right. There you go. Oh my
I haven't
God.
had any nutrients in a month. I've been eating air.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, it's good that we're seeing these. It's nice to know that we're making to minimize Alzheimer's. It's nice you don't have to take something, you just have to change up your diet, and that has a huge
Right.
effect. Which I wonder how much. I wonder how many other things you could do that for too, right?
Right.
Diabetes,
You
just
know, yeah. And my relatives, because they were all elderly, they, uh, your grandmother's a bit of an exception, but the other ones, they never really stayed up late. They went to bed early. Like they didn't have necessarily issues with sleep. They were busy all day, and I don't remember them staying until, 11, 12 o'clock at night. They went to bed 8, 9 o'clock, which adds to this idea that they're not eating and they didn't have a sleep issue. I don't know if there's a lot of catch-22s going on. They did say in this article that the sleep wasn't being caused, the lack of sleep was not being caused by the fact that, well, they're old, old people, they can't sleep. They said it was something specific to people with Alzheimer's. Okay. But as a lifestyle situation, people didn't used to stay up as late as they do nowadays, right? Like I said, there were no lights with electricity. When we did get electricity, okay, people could stay up later and longer, but they also weren't necessarily working the fields. They were doing urban jobs with a 9 to 5 type thing. But as time progressed, how many more people especially your generation, they're up till 12, 1 o'clock. Some are gaming, some are, I don't know, online.
Well, let me tell you, Michael's so addicted to Marvel Rivals, he doesn't even let me sleep, Mom. He's like, Chris, I need you. It's gonna be a problem when you go down there, Mom. You're gonna be like, I want to spend time with my son. He's like, I need to be a Lord Doctor Strange. I'm like, Michael, calm down.
Yeah, that's all gonna change pretty soon for Mike.
Yeah,
there's so many things you can do in the course of a day and be sharp.
Yeah,
during the day. But having said that, that's part of it too. So younger people, they're staying up later. They're messing their circadian clock up to the point where, hopefully they solve this issue, because if that's part of the reason why. We have so many issues with the Alzheimer's, because they did a study a while ago where the brain cleans out the dead cells when you sleep. And they noticed with the people with Alzheimer's, they don't do as much of that. So is that because it can't? Is because they weren't a lot of questions to be answered about that.
Yeah. When it comes to, it's funny, we up until like a couple years ago, we did not know why humans actually needed sleep. Did you know that? Like, we knew that there was a reason for it. We just never figured out the reason.
Yeah.
Like, there's a reason why we get tired, but it took them forever to figure it out. And I still think they don't completely understand, but you're right. It does heal cells. So I wonder if we get tired because that's how many cells die throughout the day. And like that death process.
Maybe, but, there's health-induced comas. Sometimes when people are so bad, they put them into a coma so the body can heal itself. It needs to shut other functions down to get it, to do the work that the body naturally does. And there is something to be said for it. Now we've also learned, when I was younger, sleep was the enemy if you wanted to lose weight, because you weren't moving, you weren't getting,
really?
You weren't burning things. Yeah, when we were younger. And now there's a different understanding. You need sleep to lose weight. Your body needs it. Somehow it helps with weight loss.
Well, yeah.
Which I never understood that, but you think movement would help with weight loss. But that's so important for sleep. And a lot of people who are obese, they don't have good sleep schedules. They have
absolutely.
They're either up late. Yeah.
And then also, if you do go to bed, how good's the sleep? That's the other one.
Oh, right.
Like, I wish there was a way, because a lot of people I know who are like, oh, I need to sleep. They have to take some kind of medication to put them to sleep. I can't believe that if you're putting yourself to sleep with a medication, you're getting that REM sleep that you need. There's got to be blocks to that. So.
Yeah, that's definitely true, because they do know from sleep that because, sleep studies give you so much information. There's levels of sleep. When you first start out, going to deep sleep, your REM sleep, you're this, you're that. And if you're interrupted in those stages, it really affects the quality of your sleep, and it affects the quality of your day, and you drink more coffee, the heart starts beating more. It's just a bad combination. So back to what they're saying, I think there is something to be said, only because we have done it as a society. We did it for decades, centuries. People ate only when they were hungry, and they went to bed when the lights were out.
But they also only lived to like 65 at best.
So, and that's a good point too. Was it, other factors play into it. So maybe it's not 100% the best. Like, maybe there's something to be said for where we are now. I just think that, humans evolve also. Our bodies can't tolerate what people used to eat 200 years ago. We don't have the enzymes. We don't have the bacteria. We don't have the good stuff.
That's probably true. I mean, I don't know if we've really tested that, but I'm sure that's true. But there's a comedian that has a funny joke that is pretty serious, but back in the 1700s, I mean, people would have 12 kids and only 6 of them would survive, right? Like, that was just part of the process. And now, I mean, you don't really have that anymore unless it's because of an illness or a...
Well, Right, but that was also in a time where there was no sanitation.
Right.
People just dumped their
But I would
excrement
think
out
that
on
they
the
would have
street and
gotten
kids walked
used
to
to.
school in it.
Oh, so you mean just India nowadays? Gotcha.
Well, you know,
Top 5 dirtiest.
yeah.
That Mike showed me a meme last night. It's a famous meme where this guy goes around asking people what's the grossest or dirtiest country in the world, and this kid goes India, and he says no. Take another guess. The kid goes, nah, it's definitely India. Kid's like, yeah, it's definitely no. It's you're wrong, but
I was watching an old Seinfeld where they go to a wedding in India, and the groom is the Indian, and the parents aren't even going to go to it. And one of the character goes to their parents' house to, I don't know, drop something off, and they go, "Don't go to the wedding. It's a dirty country. Don't go there. We're not even going to go." Like, and as long as you're there, don't use the bathroom. And I thought, as watching this, like, boy, you can't do that show today. That's definitely considered racist, and they would never allow that, what was considered funny, like the understood joke that nobody could say. So yeah, I think it was a different time back then, and they do know for a fact people had different enzymes. Remember, they didn't have refrigeration. They
yeah.
salted their food. Of course, they
Good point.
tolerated
Good
different
point.
things than we did 200 years ago, and going forward. But and they didn't cook things like we did. We've learned so much about it. Now, you could say that that's made us weaker because we can't fight off as many things, but we're not as exposed to as many
Yeah,
things
I
as
guess
back
that's true
then.
too. Huh. But pollution.
Let me share this one with you along this topic of food, and then we can move on. It sounds gross, but it's an incredible cancer breakthrough. This man had a cancer. I didn't bring the article because I forgot about it, but stage 4, was not going to live, tumor spreading. I forget what the original cancer was. They did a fecal transplant.
I've heard of this.
They took the feces of a woman who beat her cancer by taking a certain drug inhibitor or a cancer inhibitor, and it worked so well that, point being, the gut biome was changed and it started fighting the cancers itself. So now they took some of her material and they implanted it in several people who it wound up curing him. He's now cancer-free.
Wow, that's amazing.
It is amazing, but it points to, and I guess along the lines of what we're saying here, how very important that gut biome is.
Yeah, that's true.
And how also, let me tell you this, how also I think we did a lot of damage for a number of years there with the antibiotics, not just abusing them in the sense that, they don't work as well now, or they may not, but also killing off so much. And I know for when your brother was little, he was on antibiotics a lot for his ear infections. We didn't know about probiotics. They never told us put the good stuff back in. Only till later did we start, I'd say within the last 15 years, did we start having this understanding of, if you kill off the good bacteria, you have to put it back in with the probiotics.
Right.
And you're seeing more and more of that now for people fighting cancers and autoimmune disorders. You have to take the probiotics because that's the gut biome is what 90% of your immune system comes out of your gut.
Right.
All right, I'm pulling that number out of the air, but a huge number comes out of the gut.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, they've been talking about that for years when it comes to if you follow anything fitness, they'll talk about your gut biome. That's not new science, which is good. I guess the hard part is figuring out, like, there's tests you could take to figure out what your gut biome needs. But generally speaking, if you just clean up your diet, it'll change. And I forget how long the time period is. I think it's like 2.5 weeks. I don't think it's that long. So,
well, I think intermittent fasting is supposed to help that too.
Yeah. That's why I got a good gut biome.
I got to take that back. I don't think it's intermittent. I think fasting helps it. So for people who don't eat for a day or two, it resets it. But
it takes 36 hours. It takes 36 hours for the stomach to get rid of everything. So if you do a 36-hour fast, not only does it get rid of a lot of those toxins in your stomach, but it also it almost doubles how much human growth hormone you create. So that's why it's great for you to do a 36-hour fast. So when I know I'm going to Aunt Sue's on Sundays, I'll do a Saturday fast all day, and then dinner on Sunday that's how we do it in this.
Fast after that? Where's the 36-hour part? I'm missing that part.
So Friday is my last meal. Friday night's my last meal, all of Saturday. Okay. So technically, I do longer than 36. It's like 40. It's like 40, right?
Okay.
So I feel good after that. Here's the problem with fasting for people that have never done it, because I've done the 3-day water fast. you don't realize how bad your body needs food because you're always constantly eating, so you don't realize when your muscles aren't recovering. Just doing the stairs hurts by the third day. Just walking around, your knees start to hurt. You start feeling it in your joints. So that's the part. But your stomach's like, oh, we can keep going. We can do this for 40 days. By the third day, you're like, whoa, it's super easy. But you realize your body's taking a toll very quickly.
Well, and I don't think it's something they encourage you to do frequently.
Exactly.
I think you do it once in a while, not like you're doing it every week before Aunt Sue's dinner.
Yeah.
I think it's something that, it's not necessarily good for your heart or your body to put it through that stuff all the time. I do believe that it's a good thing to do once in a while. I just don't know that it should be, other than intermittent, I think is fine because we know it works. We've seen a whole society that was
well, you're still getting your calorie. Yeah, you're still getting the same amount of calories in a day. So, like, if you're still getting the same amount of calories that you should be taking just in a smaller window. Whereas a full day fast, you're not taking in calories.
Right. But I think it's also not just the quantity of food outside the fast or the intermittent time or the eating time. It's the quality. It's the how many people are, I think I'll have an apple at 11 o'clock at night. No, they're not. They're having junk or they're having processed foods. And, I think that takes a toll on the body overall. And food can be a poison. It could be a long-term slow poison if you're eating, let alone the fact that we're learning and I don't even think we know the half of it yet on a wide scale. I think Kennedy has touched on this HHS, that he just said something about certain things he's going to do with the food supply. I am sure they're all going to go crazy in the food manufacturing companies because they're so used to producing this garbage with preservatives and everything else because people want to buy it at midnight. They want to be eating the junk late at night or into the wee hours or first thing in the morning. They grab a junk, candy bar on their way to work and think that that's healthy. That's the kind of stuff that I think long-term takes a toll on a body. You can't keep doing that. And by the way, now we have a whole generation of young children who have been raised on it. And parents didn't know it. I'm not faulting parents for doing it, but how many mornings, just grab the breakfast sandwich and throw it in the microwave and take it to school. Oh, I'm having eggs, I'm having a sausage, I'm having bread. Little do you know what preservatives and stuff are put in there, and a kid has that every day. It's going to take its toll over 30, 40 years.
Yeah, I have to really look at those. Next to the fruits that I get, the frozen fruits, you got those like eggs Benedicts, or not eggs Benedict, like the ham, egg, and cheese, sausage, egg, and cheese. Yep. I'm sure those are all preservatives. I wonder if there's a company that makes good ones. Because one thing I've noticed, right? Yeah. One thing I've noticed, listen, $1 trillion idea, $1 trillion mom. One thing I've noticed is all these Better Fresh companies and all these health companies, they always do breakfast and or lunch and dinner. They never do breakfast. If I could get a nice sausage, egg, and cheese, not that microwave thing that Dunkin' Donuts makes, right?
Yeah.
I think people think that, no breakfast, so that means I can't have that, or I can't have pancakes, I can't have waffles. Just make that your dinner. Right? It's and again, it's not great for you, but it's better than just because I love breakfast foods. I think a lot of people assume, I can't have breakfast foods anymore, which isn't true. You just move them later. So that's why I'm like, if I can get a good sausage, egg, and cheese preserved that a HelloFresh or something could do, which is definitely healthier than most processed foods. Oh, Mom, we're starting a company.
Yeah. Well, I guess statistically, not a lot of people eat breakfast. That might be it.
And people have stopped eating breakfast because they realize that breakfast isn't that great for you. Right? Remember the old triangle? I
don't agree. I totally disagree with that. But I think some people at some ages can bypass that. But I think that also goes back to your intermittent fasting aspect.
Right.
If you're ending dinner at midnight and you're having a sausage, egg, and cheese at 8 o'clock in the morning, that might be a little too soon for your body.
Right. Well, I guess if you moved your eating window so you would eat from, I mean, it would be crazy, but 8 to 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3. So yeah, so if you eat from 8 to 3 and that's your last meal for the day, that would be tough to do.
Right. And one thing else you have to remember too, a child's body uses so much more energy to grow.
Well, I think child's body, but also that goes right. But that goes back to, that goes back to what you're giving the kids for breakfast, right? You growing up for you, Remember the old triangle that we used to? They kind of
Yeah,
phased
that's
that out.
totally wrong.
Yeah, totally
Totally
wrong.
wrong.
Like Cheerios. Remember how healthy Cheerios were? Cheerios are so bad for you. It's all carbs and wheat,
Yeah, and
processed,
sugar. It's a lot of
processed
sugar.
all the way through. Yeah, there's
Right,
no,
right.
and that used to be part of a balanced diet.
But you're also young too. You're gonna find, like for Dad and me, as we're approaching 60, a big breakfast we burn off, a decent lunch we burn off. By the time we get to dinner, we're not burning it off anymore. And your dad works out at night, right? So if we eat too late, our body doesn't break it down. My relatives were the same thing. They didn't necessarily have a big breakfast, but their dinner was at lunchtime. And then they had something small at dinner time. Just because our body's metabolism is slowing down so much, we don't burn it off. So a lot has to do with your age. That's why I say for children, they got to eat a lot. And if you're giving them processed stuff, that's going to take a toll over 40
Yeah.
years, right? 30
I
years.
also think
If
that.
you're
Oh,
giving
sorry.
them good food, their body can process that and get more out of it than basically junk. And when I say junk, I don't mean, cereal's terrible for kids. I mean, that's just junk. But you could give them decent fiber cereal with fruit. It's the other stuff that makes it a good meal.
Well, I know that they've kind of disproven the whole working out at a young age stunts growth. Like that's not a real thing. So I wonder if
Okay.
now that they start getting kids to work out younger, I wonder if we're going to see a stronger breed of kids.
Go play outside.
Yeah, but I mean like
Go
actually
play
lifting.
tag. Yeah, no, go outside and play. I mean, when you say
Boo.
kids, I hope you're talking like 8th grade and under,
Yeah.
because we have just screwed these poor kids up with this organized sports and stuff. Go out and play, go socialize, go run in the neighborhood, go ride a bike. All that was stuff we did. Remember, change of direction? All that is tag. I'll never forget a coach telling me that. He has to train kids in high school how to do change of directions. Why? Because they weren't allowed to play tag on the playground in school. Because, oh, you can't chase a kid. That's how he learned. King of the
Well,
Hill.
we had wall
That's how he
ball.
learned.
We had wall ball till Ben had to freaking trip and break his goddamn arm, and then wall ball was over. I still remember. I still remember his body when he hit that wall, Mom. Remember this, right? In St. Elizabeth's, right? You had the piece of. Remember that piece of wood? Which, what the hell was the point of that piece of wood? It's like a foot or two out of off the wall. So you had a brick wall, and for those of you that never played wall ball, because you're not even old enough to know what wall ball is, because you don't have recess anymore, right? You would throw a ball, and someone would have to grab it, and if it hit you off the wall, you had to run to the wall, touch the wall, so that you wouldn't get tagged out.
Right.
Fun ass game till one kid, Ben. Oh, don't worry, I'll mute his name. He gets the
You
ball.
know who you are.
Yeah, he runs. He trips, and because it's 2 feet out, he kind of like scorpions himself, right? His back kind of bends backwards. I just remember his face like as his feet are kind of behind his head. It's like, man, no. And then that was the end of wall ball.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's a shame. I mean, there's so many social interactions, so many things, so many mistakes you made without adults interacting. I just think it's a big difference, and it stinks too growing up when you learn a lot by just being on your own outside playing stupid stuff with other kids. And you're going to get hurt. We had people get hurt all the time, and parents were much better equipped to deal with it. They weren't quick to sue everybody for everything under the sun. If you cut your hand, you cut your hand. You put a Band-Aid on it, you went to the doctors. If you took you to the doctors, half the time you got a butterfly bandage and you moved on. But just this organized crap, it's if that's what you have to do, fine, but otherwise get the hell outside, go play, go run around, go do stuff. It's just I don't know. I just lifting weights, come on. Nobody even thought to do that when they were younger. They just wanted to play and have fun. Nobody wanted to go sit in a dark gym. That's the kind of stuff you do in high school when you're serious into sports or college. I just think it's sad when young children go lift some weights, go use the machines, go do all
go
this
squat.
stuff.
Why are you not squatting 210?
Right. I mean, I'm fine with that if all you do is sit in front of a TV all day. But the ideal scenario is more socialized play. Get out while you're young and do it. You're not going to do it when you're older, and that's the time to develop all those other silly skills, social skills, athletic skills that, my God, I remember when you were little, I could not get over the girls on the monkey bars. Now, I never had any upper body strength to speak of, But I was not a monkey bar person. I don't know. Maybe when I was younger, when I watched the girls, and it's definitely true. I think the girls are much better at a younger age doing those monkey bars than any of you young guys were on the playgrounds and you little boys.
Probably.
Now, did that change? Sure. I don't know why, but I was always shocked at that. So I'm like, go with it, girls. Keep it up because for somebody who's no upper body strength, I think that's wonderful.
We might have to give that one a test, Mom, one of these days. We might have to hit the gym, hit a gymnasium or whatever and see if you can do the monkey bars. Because I was just thinking, I don't know if I could do monkey bars. It's been a long time.
No, I don't think I ever could, but I think mine was more a fear. I've seen little, when you guys were little, all the little girls,
Yeah.
they were like across the bars without thinking. I don't recall seeing the guys do it. Maybe y'all could, maybe that just wasn't your thing, but the girls were just great at it. And I don't know,
There's always
maybe I
that
had
one.
kind of luck.
There's always that one
Yeah.
kid that could skip a ring, which was everyone was like, "Whoa!"
Yeah. Go in the long reach.
Yeah.
Do the long reach. But anyhow, that's the kind of, I'd rather see somebody do that, girl or young guy, little kid doing that, than sitting in a gym somewhere.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, what's the point?
Yeah.
We've gotten out of control with this body building. They don't need to build their bodies when they're younger other than grow.
Do you want your kid to be a goddamn D1 athlete? Do you want your freaking kid to be a D1 athlete? You shut your mouth over there, Ma.
Well, let me say this, and you know this for a fact. You lived with at least one parent who worked out every day. We could not get the three of you to commit to any sort of workout till you were much older.
Yeah, I probably didn't start
Imagine
till...
if you had the discipline you had now when you were in, I don't know, 7th grade or 8th grade. You could have played any sport in high school and dominated, but you guys just didn't. And I'm not saying you.
I was
all three of
huge,
you.
Mom. I was
No
huge.
three of you wanted to do it. We could barely get you to put your soccer cleats on to go to soccer camp. And finally, I was like, if they're not putting the shoes on, we're not paying for it anymore. You guys just didn't have, and some kids don't. Other kids, that's their thing. But I wouldn't have expected you guys to have that when you were in grammar school. I just thought naturally over time you'd pick up on that, the value of it and the consistency of it. But you got to admit, none of you guys did that in high school. Not until maybe
In high school, when I transferred, I definitely got more into basketball, but then I was like, okay. And then when you realize you're not going to college for basketball, you're like, oh, okay.
No. I'm not talking about a sport. I'm saying just working out. None of you guys did that in high school. And don't bullshit your listeners.
In high school?
Yep. None of you guys had the discipline in terms of applying it towards lifting like you do now.
I think you're forgetting that then, because I used to come home every day after school since freshman year and work out in the basement. I never missed a day.
I don't remember that. No.
Really?
I don't remember.
Mom, I used to
No.
leave soccer practice just to come work out.
Well,
You don't remember
did
that?
Soccer, but soccer, okay, I'll give you soccer maybe. That was junior, senior year. You didn't do soccer
Freshman, sophomore year. Well, yeah, a different school. But
Right.
I was still lifting at that point.
I don't
Not at the level
remember
that I
the
was now, but
level.
yeah.
Well, I'm not saying weight level. I'm saying consistency and time, like the same amount of time every day.
Oh,
I
yeah,
don't
no
recall
shot.
that.
Because
And I don't recall that with Kenny, and I'm definitely not with Michael. I
it
don't
was.
think
Well,
anybody.
we know Michael wasn't lifting. Come on, Mom. But I.
Well, Michael played football for freshman year, and there was a certain amount of working out you had to do. I don't remember if he continued on his own
Yeah.
with that. I know he, you know him. He's a stealth workout person. I never know what he does. We're all finding out
Yeah.
after the fact things that Mike's able to do.
He's doing
But
those
I
neck
don't-
exercises where you put the band on your head and you just go like this. I was like, Mike, what are you doing? Where you take like a band and you just put it on a wall and you're just like, gotta stretch the neck muscles.
Right.
Strengthen the neck
Well,
muscles.
I just think it's important for that, but that I would have expected in a high school level. I wouldn't have expected that, nor would I have encouraged that when you were younger. I'd rather you go do the organized sports then for fun, run around, go to the playground. That I think is ideal. Put it this way, we know it works better because, I don't know, there's less depression, less stress, fewer injuries for young kids doing it that way.
Oh, that's
versus
another big
now.
factor. The injuries. You know how many kids I see now with knee braces because they got
I know.
messed up
Yeah.
in 4th grade?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, from your experience in baseball, all the kids that had the Tommy John arm, I
Yeah.
forget what it's called, with the thrown out elbows and whatnot, and that really turned your dad off to you guys continuing with stuff because, fortunately nobody was dying to do it. Definitely not Michael, but it's just one of these, where are you going with it at a young age to be doing it? I mean, you must really love a sport to want to have that much damage at such
Yeah.
a young age.
I
But
mean, once I got to high school, that's when I saw the football injuries. Everyone
yeah.
was on crutches. Everyone was on steroids. So, yeah.
Well, we talked about your uncle. He hurt his knee in high school at a time where they didn't have the procedures they have today.
Mhm.
And he even had the best. He had like the Jets doctor work on New York Jets doctor work on his knee down in New York City. They did the best that they could. And as time went on, he stopped playing in high school. And then he started playing again in college. And I think after 2 years, he was like, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
I'm putting so much damage on my body. I'm not going to play pro. I'm done with football. Reality kind of hits that if you're not going anywhere and if it's not paying for your schooling, which it wasn't for, I don't think it was for Uncle, but you have to have a come to Jesus moment and say, my body can only take so much.
Yeah.
And now he's still paying the price for it, with his knee. And that was just one major injury. I don't know if I've had any others after that, but
Yeah.
yeah, it really takes its toll, some of these sports.
Speaking of sports, did you see LeBron James and Stephen A. Smith's little confrontation? Did you hear about this?
I've heard about it. I'm wondering if Smith is overblowing it on purpose because he has political aspirations. But yeah, it seems like it's been in the news quite a bit. I don't know.
Well, I was curious what your thoughts were. I know you're not the biggest LeBron fan, but I kind of saw. I will say I think Stephen A. Smith's in the right of this was probably not the way to do it, but Stephen A. Smith brought up a good point. He wasn't talking to a player; he was talking to a parent, and I thought, okay, that makes sense. But also, the main reason for this is because his son, Bronny or whatever his name is, Bronny.
Ronnie.
Yeah, he's really not cut out for the NBA. He's in a weird spot because you have, for those of you that don't know, you have the
Oh,
NBA.
let me just say something.
Go ahead.
His name comes from his dad,
Yeah.
LeBron.
Yeah.
So he's Bronny.
Bronny. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So, you have the NBA and then you have the G League, and the G League is like kind of the minor league, I guess you can say, where a lot of players from the NBA will go back and forth, kind of come up if you need a player, like a eighth man, just to put him on the team if you need it, just in case. And Bronny is in kind of a Bronny, whatever.
Ya. Like LeBron.
Hey, it's a terrible name to begin with. Let's be honest.
It's
Go
not
ahead.
Listen, it's not LeBron James.
Yeah, it's
LeBron.
Braun. Okay, whatever. Either way, get normal names. Make it Chad, whatever. But so he's kind of in this weird spot because, and you know me, I don't know much about professional sports. I just like playing the sports. I don't watch them. But statistically, he's doing very well in the G League, but he's not quite good enough for the NBA yet, right? He's averaging 20 plus points a game in the G League, airballing threes in the pros. So,
Yeah.
So Stephen A. Smith and a lot of other people have been very critical about how good he is of a player, or if he even
Right.
belongs in the NBA if it wasn't for his dad. He probably wouldn't be playing if it wasn't for his dad. And then LeBron James comes up to him. They have this confrontation at a Lakers game, and then Stephen A. Smith goes and talks, or LeBron walks up to Stephen A. Smith, and he's like, hey, don't talk about my son. Kind of a Will Smith, Jada Pinkett Smith moment, at the awards.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Now, here's the problem. Stephen A. Smith is talking about an NBA player. Like, your son's going to take criticism. That's his... you can't complain if your son's in the NBA taking criticism. He's not that good. He's not very good at all. Mm-hmm. So, in comparison to the rest of the NBA. So, and then for LeBron to... It's almost like you... It's like if someone was writing news articles about me and you said something even though I'm a public figure, it doesn't make sense. You're going to get criticism. That's just part of the job. So for LeBron, who's been taking criticism for he's been in the league for 20 years now, at least, to say, don't talk about my son, who's another NBA player. It's like, well, that doesn't make sense.
Right.
Everyone's going to get criticized as an NBA player. So I think Stephen A. Smith's in the right for this.
Right. I'll be honest. I don't know what was discussed. I heard that there was some brouhaha over it. I also, so I take a little bit. I'm a callous person. Sometimes I think these things are planned because both sides want attention. The NBA needs attention. It gets them in the news because nobody's watching the NBA anymore. And Stephen A. Smith likes to make a name for himself, especially now he's trying to elevate himself outside of sports and become some sort of
Political figure.
like a social media figure across just outside of sports. Okay, so this certainly helps his cause. It gets him, not I wouldn't say 5 minutes of fame because everybody knows it, but it gives him.
He's trying to do a
Another
different outlet.
platform.
I think a lot of
Right.
people see, or a lot of these big, so he's definitely kind of like the Tucker Carlson of sports in the sense of if he goes somewhere like Twitter, Facebook, people are going to follow. So I
Right.
think he sees, oh, I can do all this on my own, make my own team like Tucker did and be very successful. I think he would be more successful on his own than if he went through ESPN. And I think everyone
Yeah,
kind of agrees
like
with
I
that.
said, I think he's trying to get out of the sports. I think he wants to go into politics, or that's what they've been
Oh,
alluding. And he's trying to make a name, obviously, this, just to bring more attention on a more universal level. Even though I think he has a name, people do know him. I know him, and I don't
yeah,
follow the NBA
me
that much.
neither.
But I think that the given I don't know what was discussed or what was said in general, I don't think LeBron James or anybody, Kobe Bryant or any of the Michael Jordan, they're not necessarily helping their kids who are trying to make a name for themselves. And it comes with the game. You can't Bronny's got enough stuff on his shoulders, even though he's spoiled and he's lucky and he has probably the genes and the father and everything else. When your kid's in that position and they go as far as they're trying to go, how much more are you going to help them? You got them
Yeah.
on a team or you got them in the league. Maybe they earn the spot at the low end, but they obviously got to push just for being you. Okay, fine. But already there are expectations on this person that nobody else has when they come in, right? And that's hard enough. Now, the kid, I don't know him. Maybe he's not. Didn't he also have a heart condition too?
Yeah.
Right?
This was the one that
Something
had a heart
happened.
attack in college.
Right. I mean, it's amazing that he's been able to go this far. I'm not sure a no-name player, no matter how good they are, they would take a risk on somebody with a heart condition, unless they knew for a fact that, he's okay and everything's fine. Let's assume that's the case. So, having said that, obviously this kid has had a lot of perks, or a lot of benefits being associated with his dad, and that may be compensating for his skill. But at some point, these parents, whether you're LeBron James or mom and dad in the stands at a high school game where you think your kid's a superstar, you can promote them quietly, you can help them and guide them and protect them. But once you start going to the coaches and going to the people and start
We
squawking to
become
them,
that parent,
you become that parent. And not only that, you become that parent where you scratch your head and said, is your kid that good? Or are you just mouthing off?
Right. Exactly. So, speaking of basketball, did you see? I don't have an article for it, but you saw Angel Reese. She's blabbing right now about WNBA player. For those of you wondering, a sport that no one
Yeah.
watches. She's blabbing about how if she doesn't get paid more, she's not going to play.
Right.
Right, which is hilarious considering that the women's WNBA All-Star team lost to a Filipino high school boys team. Did you see that?
I did.
Got
I saw
wrecked.
that.
I don't know what the final score was, but yeah, they got crushed. So
Yeah.
I will lead the charge on the internet. The women's NBA, just get rid of it. Useless garbage.
No, I wouldn't
Get
say
rid of it.
that.
They
No.
lose money every single year. Get rid of it.
No, I'm not against that.
I'm kidding, but they need a wake-up call, and I hope that was a wake-up call. I can't stand the people in the WNBA, except for Caitlin Clark. She's fine, but even she's kind of turned a little bit. So,
I'm going to post this. I don't know if I ever said it on the podcast. I know we've talked about it. I've read this article about Angel Reese. My question is still out there. How is it that there's not one transgender player in the WNBA?
I feel like there are, but they just don't say it. I'm 95% sure Brittany Griner is a man. Have you ever heard her talk? Or, Mom,
I'm saying if they are, there is no reason in this world today they wouldn't own it. And I wouldn't say
LeBron,
admit to it, but
because
they'd be
LeBron
proud
would
to
put
do
up
it.
40.
I'm
Bronny in the
I'm just
WNBA
saying.
would be nuts.
I am just saying, I just think it's an unusual thing of all the sports, the number of young people that are involved in basketball, especially in socioeconomic areas where it could propel them and be a career for them. I can't believe there isn't one individual of a transgender persuasion who hasn't gotten to the point where they want to be accepted into the WNBA.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. So when Angel Reese is complaining about the contracts and the money that they make, it goes back to everything else. I'm all for girls or women's sports.
Yeah.
But you got to earn it. You got to earn it. You got to make a name. And they had somebody, Caitlin Clark, who brought a bit of pizzazz to it. And I don't think they've made the best of promoting somebody like that in the WNBA to bring more attention, because obviously ratings were up when she played.
Caitlin Clark.
And that's what it's all about.
Caitlin Clark. This just goes to show you just how these women are delusional if they think Caitlin Clark isn't the face of the WNBA. When Caitlin Clark was in college and she was doing, remember the big, well, her game, which was I think the quarterfinals, had more views than the actual finals. Right. So she is basketball. She is the women's WNBA. It's not Angel Reese, Sid from Ice Age, and it's not Brittany Griner or whatever, who's only known for Russia. I haven't seen her since, except for her air balls and shit. Besides, if the WNBA would be, you wouldn't even see it on TV if it wasn't for Caitlin Clark. They're trying, but it has there's no ratings.
Oh, no, it was. They would always have a season; it would always be on. But Caitlin Clark brought a certain amount of attention to it.
Oh, absolutely,
which was a great thing. And that's what any sport, any performer, anybody in the public eye, it's all about views and attention. And there's an old expression: negative publicity is just as valuable as publicity.
So then, why they not put Caitlin Clark on the Olympic team?
Right, and that's why I'm saying if they're not using the asset that they have. That's like taking a Michael Jordan and putting him on the G League because he's too good.
Which is why the NBA has to pay $30 million in losses on the WNBA every season. They suck, viewership wise.
Yeah, or they're not getting the attention that now I think it's getting better. I think I'm hearing more about WNBA players.
Hold on. Let me pause you. You're only hearing about them for their terrible takes. That's really the only reason you're hearing about them. And if you want to call that negative,
not really true. That's
okay.
Not
Name
true.
a positive. Name any The only reason I know of Angel Reese is because her terrible takes when it comes to finances, where she's like, we should be getting paid more than the men. Same with Brittany Griner.
Angel Reese aside, she's one of the more attractive WNBA players. I'll give you that.
What?
But I knew Ionescu a long time ago. I knew I've heard her name when she was in college. Heard of it. No, she's one of the major players. She's the one who played against the boys team that you're talking about.
And lost.
And they had a negative clip of her because the kid beat her to the, he boxed
Crushed
her or whatever it was. Well, yeah, in defense. And okay. But I never knew 4 players 5 years ago. Now I know 4 players and more. So it is getting more attention. And I'm not even somebody who follows it. I mean, young girls play basketball, Chris. They're into it. They watch it. They don't relate to the guys. They relate to the women play. Maybe it's not the same level that the men play at. But as a young girl, you don't necessarily want to mimic the men. You want to mimic the women you see playing high school and college basketball.
But the only reason that I know Brittany Griner is because of being stuck in Russia for stupid reasons, right? The other person that I know, Angel Reese, I see clips of her. She's abysmal, but she's tall. And then she goes and flaps about how she's the face of the WNBA, how she deserves more pay. Get that shit out of here. Like, that's the reason why its ratings are so low. No one wants to hear that.
There is one woman player. I don't know her name.
There we go.
She's married to an NBA player.
Okay.
But that's the point. I don't follow it, and I know this. I don't follow it at all, and I know these names. You're right. I'm hearing about it through social media. Similar to like this, I know LeBron James, but same thing with Stephen Smith. I know he's from ESPN. But the more attention you get, the more views you get, that's your opportunity to make money. And when you have somebody like a Caitlin Clark, maybe Angel Reese thinks she's bringing attention, even though it's negative to the WNBA, and it's bringing, people are focused on it.
That's my problem, though, and that's where I disagree. They're not bringing views to the WNBA. They're bringing views to their social media, and it's trash. And it's not correlating from she wants more money, let me go watch the WNBA. It's not translating. Right. And that's why the NBA takes a loss every year. So there's a huge difference between building up these characters than building up the NBA or WNBA. That's why that's what I'm saying. Caitlin Clark, I mean, people want to see her play. When she's not playing, no one's watching.
Right.
It's 5 people
Right.
in the stands. Whereas,
But the hope is that you have more Caitlin Clarks. You want to have more individuals, young girls, get involved in the sport. So I'm not against the WNBA and
well, of
having a
course,
place and whatnot. I don't think it should have to be financed totally by the NBA.
it would fall apart.
But
It doesn't make the money. There's no jerseys being sold except for Caitlin Clark. I'm sure the other ones have gone up a little bit, but we're not talking
and the
big money.
question is, like anything else, the NBA came from nothing. It was a sport that some teacher developed in a high school gym, and it grew over a century now because of the interest, because of the skills and the abilities. Somebody has to get off of the whole, we need the money from the men. To me, that's a cop out. Okay. If you have an audience and people will buy into it, what's the audience? To your point, is it as exciting as the men's? No. Maybe they'll never make or in my opinion, no. Maybe they'll never make the money that the NBA makes. But is there an audience? Are there young women and some men interested in the sport?
But there would be
That's how you
more.
grow it.
There would be more of an audience if these players who act like they're better than the NBA, who say they can beat NBA players, if they just said, "No, I love the game of basketball and I want to bring more eyes," people will listen. People will watch. But instead, they have to run their mouths about how I deserve more money than LeBron James, and then expect people to agree. That's what I mean. There's negative publicity, and then there's negative publicity to the person. And I think, like Angel, there are more viral clips of Angel Reese. There's montages of her terrible basketball than her good basketball, because there's not much good basketball.
Angel, you have to remember, Angel Reese is making a name for herself. She's thinking of her life after the
and it's
WNBA.
working. Right. But that goes to show
That's
you're
what
not
she wants
building
to
the WNBA. You're trying to build your person.
I don't think that's what she's trying to do. She's just trying to promote Angel Reese, right?
Yeah.
She's allowed to do that
course.
because she's not a good player. She's got to find something to do after she's
But then
done with
don't
it.
attack the end. Don't say I'm going to sit out of the WNBA unless I'm going to get paid more. That's ridiculous.
And that's up to the WNBA to say, go right ahead because you're not that good a player. And that's the point. Same thing in men's. A lot of them could mouth off and say, well, I'm not going to play then.
Yeah.
Fine. You better be a damn good player to make me want to have you play and cave
Yeah,
to your
and she's
need.
not. Mom, this is how many WNBA teams can you name?
Maybe one or two.
Right. So you're not building this brand of the WNBA. You're not name other team. I think there's something fever. But
and I think we're agreeing that she's not the best. Her situation.
She should not be the face of the WNBA. Her stats are not good in comparison to, well, maybe they're good to most women in the WNBA. I don't know. But from what I've seen, I mean, you lost to high schoolers. Your all-star team lost to high schoolers. So you got to build this up a different way. Sitting there saying, hey, we lost to a Filipino high school team that no one's ever heard of, and now I want more money, does not make sense. You'll never see an NBA player.
She's going down a different path. She's promoting herself, not the WNBA.
Right, and what I'm saying is, why is the WNBA not looking at her saying, get this psychopath out of here, let's build someone else up? Why is Caitlin Clark not on everything? And that goes back to what you're saying about the assets.
Well, that's I agree. I think you need to highlight some of the better players in the WNBA because, they may not perform at the level of the NBA, but if you want to build the sport up, you can't do it by taking down the other sport, or you can only ride the coattails of the NBA so much. At some point, the organization needs to start saying, and I'm sure they have, how do we get more people interested in this, right? What are we going to do? You're never going to get the NBA crowd necessarily unless they're desperate to watch something. There's always somebody out there who wants to watch some sport on an odd day.
Yeah.
They'll watch anything. They'll watch, pig races. But how do you build it up? And I do think there is an audience out there. I'm hopeful there is for a lot of mostly young girls who relate to that. Like, I'm always shocked at all the softball that's on. That's a niche. I think I see more girls softball than I do guys baseball nowadays when I flick on the sports channels. I know more. I don't know more about it, but I just see it more frequently.
You think? Are you talking? Hold on. Are you talking college level softball?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's kind of different.
You don't have professional softball.
I do agree. There's definitely no. See, that's what I mean. There is professional softball. That's how bad it is. That's how bad it is.
Really
right. So, women's softball, to your point, might be more interesting than male baseball and college sports, but college sports, you can't really compare those to the professional levels. Because you know why? Because college is more relatable because everyone goes to college than everyone going to the NBA. Not everyone makes a college team, but they're not, it's not relatable. College sports are more relatable, I guess, because it's kind of the baseline before you go pro than professional. That's why there's a lot of people you could probably make the argument more people watch college sports than professional sports because of how much of a competition there is, because these are people trying to go pro.
Well, and I think there's a top-down effect. So, for instance, I sent you an article today about C.J. Kirst. I don't know if you saw it. Do you remember the Kirst boys?
No.
You remember C.J. Kirst?
No.
So their father died. I think they went to Del Barton. They were all very good in lacrosse. One of them is a phenomenal player at Cornell. He's breaking a lot of records. He's doing very well. Okay? You knew lacrosse players at your high school. Remember how lacrosse was going to be this big up-and-coming sport?
Yeah. Never happened.
Where do you see it?
Never.
There's no pro lacrosse.
I couldn't even tell you what the name is. Yeah.
Exactly. So a lot of it has to do with what people are interested in and how they promote it, whether it's WNBA or men's lacrosse or women's softball. Women's softball is a niche thing. It's the pros aren't going to get a lot of attention because there's only a certain number of people who play
I would not say
softball,
that
into it.
Yeah.
And a lot of colleges, Chris, have gotten rid of things like field hockey. So therefore, high schools have gotten rid of it. So it's a trickle-down effect, right? The football, basketball, the traditional baseball, those sports for males, they always do really well, which is surprising to me that I see more girls softball on sports.
Well,
and maybe that's by design.
But it comes back.
Do boys baseball,
but then it comes back to the whole how good you are. Because think about this. There's more. I couldn't name an American soccer player professional, but I know Megan Rapinoe. I know. See, there's still I don't like them, but I mean they're the face. That's how you build a company. The WNBA is not able to do that. I forget what the.
Well, that's back to what you're saying. So Rapinoe, I think, was a decent player in women's soccer. I didn't follow it, but that was my impression. Right. Angel Reese is trying to be like a Rapinoe, but she doesn't have.
She doesn't have the skill. Yeah.
Right. And she's just making it for herself, as Rapinoe did, because she was getting out of
But
soccer.
you also have to remember, the other only reason that we paid more attention to the women's soccer was because they made it to the finals or won the World Cup or whatever.
They won.
Even then, I couldn't tell you what. Maybe that was the World Cup. I don't remember. Or Olympics. I couldn't. I don't. But so there was a level of skill there. The WNBA, and even even Caitlin Clark. I haven't seen much on Caitlin Clark in a while. Not since she was in college. I don't know how she does in the WNBA. I'm sure she does well, but
she did.
Yeah.
She had a good, but she was a rookie,
but
they treated her like a rookie.
Yeah,
you know, which
let me put it this way, and this is. I hope the WNBA CEO listens to this. I don't watch sports. I don't follow sports. I heard more about Caitlin Clark than when she was in college. I don't think I've seen even an article on her since she went to the WNBA, except for the fact that she didn't make the Olympic team.
Hold on. She was in the box with Taylor Swift at one of the playoff games with Kansas City.
If that's our threshold, we have more problems in the WNBA. If you're better off known off the course than on the course or court,
it gives attention to the sport because one of their players who happens to be good. That's the positive that I say about getting the attention. Maybe Angel Reese is not the best person for it because she's attacking the very sport that's supposed to be working with her. But if you take the good players, and there has to be more of them, and try and give them more of a presence. Caitlin Clark did that for the WNBA. And I think they kind of they wasted that star. Hopefully she comes back next year and is even stronger and brings more attention. Is it ever going to be at the level of the NBA? Probably not. But I think girls basketball in the college and the middle school level, high school level, that's a group of it's a whole new market area.
And here's what's
a valid one.
Here's another one that's a little annoying. Shaq, remember they were talking about trying to make the WNBA more watchable. And they came up with all these ideas, and the women were like, "Nah, we're not doing that." And then they're the worst for their own sport. Because
Could be, yeah.
they make these terrible decisions where, hey, we want to get you more views, so let's do this, let's do that, and they're like, no, we don't want to do it, and then you get blasted by a high school team. So,
Right.
like that, I can't stand that. That leaves such a bad taste, and I think everyone's
And
mouth.
that's not an Angel Reese problem or an individual.
That's a
player problem.
WNBA.
That's the organization not
Yeah.
looking at, okay, we have to know our limitations. We have to partner with other things. If we're going to partner with the NBA, that's fine. Just draining them of resources is not really fair. That's going to bite you in the ass.
Draining is not really draining is not the right word because the NBA is worth so much.
Yeah.
It's a drop in the bucket.
Taking from
Yeah,
them.
but they'll never be successful. Like it's never the pace that they're going. You can promote whoever, right? It's never going to grow. And I think lacrosse players saw that same thing, and instead of trying to build the company, they tried building their own social medias. And I guess there's some successful lacrosse players that have social media platforms, which to your point, Angel Reese might be trying to do, but these lacrosse players aren't doing it by destroying their own sport.
Right. Yeah, that's she's taking the wrong approach, but then again, she's thinking of her. And, she's not going to have a long career in the WNBA. She probably wants out already. And having said that, she's got to make a name. Yeah. And she's doing it. There's no such thing as bad publicity, even negative publicity, and she'll do it that way. I think we can keep going on this forever, but I think it's very interesting this past year. The NBA is struggling a little bit. Okay? People aren't, their viewership is down. They're still a multi-billion-dollar, but now they're looking for new inroads. They want to take it overseas. They want to get a bigger, wider audience.
Yeah, of course.
It's more money, more views, more money. So the WNBA has to figure out a way to appeal on some level, or, like I said, if they're going to piggyback off the NBA, and that's starting to decline, I don't know how much the WNBA can take before people just lose interest.
If the NBA said we are going to cut our funding to the WNBA, they would go broke in like 3 seasons. The WNBA would probably cease to exist.
I guess so. I don't know their structure. I really don't. But I don't
well, you know their structure. It's leeching off the NBA to pay the dividends or
yes, but I don't know the
debts.
Extent of all their costs. I don't even know the NBA's. All I know is, it's any business. You have to have consumers. You have to have the revenue. If not, you need to have some sort of outside support. And that's not necessarily something that's going to sustain you in the long term, right?
The NBA owns about 60% of the WNBA. So I wonder who owns the other 40%.
Maybe the teams themselves, the different owners.
Probably pumped hundreds of millions of dollars in the league. So then how much okay, ready? How much money does the NBA lose on the WNBA? First thing. 40 million a season they lose.
Right. So they're putting in $40 million to sustain it. Which tells you how much the NBA makes. They're bringing in that much.
Yeah, it's a drop in the hat as they drop in the bucket.
If the NBA starts losing viewers and people start losing interest, then all of a sudden you may see the whole paradigm shift. I mean, literally shift in terms of how much they're willing to support. Everybody talks a good game until it's money out of their pocket. That's when all of a sudden you see the real side of all these people like, oh, WNBA, support everything. Yeah, okay. Until it affects your contract. And then we'll see they'll all start singing a different tune.
I want to see if they have... WNBA is valued at $1.16 billion with the average team worth $96 million. Las Vegas Aces are the most valuable at $140 million. That's not bad at all, but that's actually more than I thought. No. But I wonder what... So...
There are 12 teams,
Who is the highest...
WNBA is becoming like our Ukraine, Chris.
I know, it feels like it. Highest paid WNBA player. Jackie Young, 540 in her... Wow. I feel like that is kind of underpaying your players then. If you have a... Jackie Young is the highest paid WNBA player with a $500,000 contract.
Right.
So, average two. So the team, that doesn't really make sense, I would say, because the team makes 100 and what did we say? 160 million?
Well, remember, you don't know who Jackie Young, I don't know her position. You don't know what,
Well, I would still say if that's your highest paid athlete, if you're Wait, hold on. So the team is worth, what did we say, 160?
Yeah.
Which
Well, 140 if she's Las
team
Vegas.
has the highest market cap in the NBA? Just because I need a reference. Valuation at 8 billion. So the highest is at 8.8 billion. so one team is worth more than the WNBA, which is kind of wild to think about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Puts it in perspective a little bit, but
right. But either way, I don't think that these WNBA players are really being an asset to the WNBA itself. And your one asset was Caitlin Clark, who everyone bought her jersey. And then you don't put her on the front page of everything. You don't put her on this, that. She wasn't on the Olympic team, which is crazy. So, and you know what's worse? And this is where I feel bad for Caitlin Clark. She just has to sit there and take it and say, well, if that's the decision the WNBA made, if I were her, I mean, she's someone that should probably be building up her social media more than Angel Reese because I think she's on borrowed time.
One thing you have to remember for the WNBA, there is no G League that I know of. There is
probably can't afford it.
A lot of these other, a lot of the men can go overseas.
Yep.
They can play in other teams. She's stuck in the sense that there's only one trick pony in town, and that's the WNBA.
Well, remember they tried.
There's nowhere else to go if that's what you want to play for.
Technically, that's not true because there were indie companies. I know Dave Portnoy she offered her a. Dave Portnoy was trying to make like a 3-on-3 basketball league, 2 men, 1 woman on multiple. Okay. Gave her a $2.2 million contract, which is essentially 4 seasons of more than that, like 7 seasons for the NBA in the WNBA. I don't know what the average lifespan of a WNBA player is, but I mean, it's almost foolish not to take that. But she wanted to go down the WNBA level because it's more prestigious, I'm sure, and that's fine. But she'll probably make more money in sponsorships and stuff anyway, because in the end, she'll be on commercials and stuff. But I don't know. I think it's such a shame. I think
commercial and that more important. That when you're done getting on that ESPN or that sports channel or on the internet sports site, that's when you start making the big money.
Yeah, hopefully.
Well, that young woman, I can't think of her name. She's on with Shaq all the time. She was an WNBA
Case in
player.
point.
But I'm saying she made a name for herself, and she got into when she finished with the WNBA. Well, before Caitlin Clark.
Yeah.
I can't think of her name. She's now, she's making the big bucks at ESPN. Is it ESPN or it might be Fox Sports, one of those. But yeah, I mean that's your ultimate goal. Same thing for some of these NBA players. They move on. Yeah. Tom Brady, they all move on.
Well, I'll say this. I don't want people to think that I'm anti the WNBA. I just think that their marketing strategy is so goddamn awful, and you're putting people in front of me that just I don't even want to hear just how terrible their takes are.
Right,
when Angel Reese says I can probably beat I think it was Kyrie Irving 1-on-1. Like stuff like that just makes people not want to. We're not giving you money. We're not watching your show. As I said, there are more TikTok highlights of her just getting airball, missed layups. Like that's why people aren't watching. You suck.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that makes me. And then we've given you every option to make it the competition a little easier for you to get those views, like lowering the rim a little bit, and you say no, and then you wonder why are people not watching. So that's the shit that drives me nuts.
Chris, they're hypocrites, and you know what else is hypocritical? The climate change group with the UN.
Oh yeah. Hold on, let me find it.
That's a better segue.
Nope, not that one.
So the UN has decided to bulldoze thousands of acres for the climate change summit in the Amazon.
Tens of thousands of acres.
Yeah. The COP30 is going to be held in Belém, Brazil. So they have to put in a 4-lane highway because they think about 50,000 people are coming. And they're coming in jets. And they're going to be, driving down that roadway. And the article goes on to talk about how many people have lost jobs because of this and how you have permanently destroyed the environment of the Amazon by putting this road in. Hypocrisy at its height.
And it's one of 30 projects that they are considering modernization. So luckily the Amazon rainforest is pretty damn big, but it's not, I don't know.
It's
Yeah, it
hypocrisy.
sucks.
It's the definition of hypocrisy. We have to bulldoze the climate and the Amazon so we can have a meeting to talk about how we should bulldoze and destroy the Amazon.
Yeah, and how we're gonna monitor. It means that they're probably gonna put in cities and they're gonna destroy a lot of these. I mean, the Amazon rainforest. You can't do that.
And we've learned in our country, thanks to Doge, about all these Green New Deal initiatives and how some of them are turning out to be abject fraud. Then it went to no green initiatives whatsoever, to the
Yeah.
tune of billions of dollars. So, and now everybody's coming down on Doge. But guess what? For all the people who are the Dems who are now screaming, oh, you can't do it. Well, you know what? Bernie Sanders seemed to think it was okay in 2008.
Yeah.
There's a whole clip of him talking about the waste and fraud in government and how it, and I quote, it's the president's job to fix it. Okay? This is from Bernie Sanders. Then you got Schumer in 2010, all over the government waste. Oh, we got to do something about that government waste. And the best was this week when they put out Barack Obama talking about it. We have to address it. We have to do it.
I mean,
to get it done.
It is. I actually watched the whole video. It is.
Yeah.
I will say this though: the stuff that he was talking about cutting is more of like the surface area stuff, right? We don't need these big books. We have buildings that we own that aren't even used. Let's get rid of those. I don't know if he ever actually did it, because even if he did, that's such a small number in comparison to.
He put Vice President Joe Biden in charge of it. You think it was ever done? I can tell you it was not.
Yeah. So it was a little, it was, if it went through, great. Because at that point, everything was going digital anyway. So thank God, instead of printing all that paper. But it's like those little surface value things that.
It's a drop in the bucket.
Yeah,
Nobody even cares.
exactly. So
we're going to make a big difference. So that's why it didn't get a lot of attention.
You know what it was? It
Not
was a
when you
talking point.
Right.
Yeah.
And now you get the Doge people in there that's really looking at it and grinding away at the infrastructure of not just what's being spent, but how we have systematically allowed a system to exist where things can be corrupted and no one would even know.
Yeah.
Outdated systems, outdated methods. We just had a whistleblower come out from the IRS saying the system we use is so
bad.
inefficient. It's by design. Totally by design.
See, I think what this was, the Obama, what we're watching here, I think this was, hey, we're doing something. You don't have to look into the politicians. And Doge was like, okay, let's look into the politicians. And they go, oh, why are hundreds of billions of dollars? Why did the Pentagon fail a $869 billion audit? That's such a crazy number.
They failed it for like 8 years.
Yeah, but this
one
one
never had a good audit.
Yeah. So imagine $869 billion every year.
Yeah.
Around that, give or take, but like that's crazy. So.
And we citizens keep funding that $869 billion, multiply that by how many agencies over and over, keep being told, oh, no, it's fine. Look the other way. And now we finally have somebody going in, and I'll keep saying it over and over again. They're more concerned about the fact, not that he's uncovering all this, because when all is said and done, the next thing's going to be is how do we stop this in the future? That's what scares everybody in government the most.
Right.
Because you can't just do that, have Trump get out of office in for how many years, and then go back to the old way. Your generation should not and will not allow that. We live in an AI world. There is no excuse to say, oh, I didn't know the IRS didn't have a decent system for tracking money, and that's why they're so inefficient. That's not acceptable anymore.
Right.
You could do that 10 years ago because we didn't have, the electronics and the quantum and this and that. You can't get away with that anymore without just admitting, we want the corruption, basically.
Well,
we're not going to track the stuff.
Well, luckily, we won't go through this article because we've already done an hour 30, but this was one of the articles that I grabbed, which was Sam Altman, CEO of... So he just... Basically, we could go into the deep dive later, but it basically just goes to show that in such a fast time, all coding jobs are done. Right.
Yes.
This thing just, as of last week, was able to do 95% of the codes for these companies. Some of these companies, 95% of its coding is done by AI.
Right.
Jobs are going to be taken over. So we won't go into detail, but that's what I'm saying. At this point, the AI is going to take
Take it
over.
over.
Yeah.
And that's one area where I say, okay, I'm all for AI. Get them into the systems, and you have to justify now to future generations where you send money. And you can't tell me anymore, oh, we don't know where the money went in Ukraine. Now there's no reason not to know. It should be earmarked, coded, and we should know exactly where it's supposed to go, right? That's just an example. Same thing with how do you fail an audit? You fail an audit, you're not getting any more money because that means AI failed. How did AI fail at numbers? Math is, so this is the point. It has existed like this far too long because we've gotten away with it of saying, oh, well, we're not going to invest in a better system. That way you can hide it. But when they're so blatant and they say things like, well, we sent money out and there's no code on there. What are you talking about? There's no code. Every accountant has to put a journal entry in. A private business, you can't get away with that. You can't fail an audit year after year after year and think you're going to get financing, tax dollars, people buying, but it's not going to happen. So we're not going to allow that anymore, or we shouldn't as citizens and the younger generation. There's no excuse anymore, and everybody needs to be held accountable. You're working to fund this stuff.
Yeah. The last thing I want to talk about before we close it down a little bit. So the government shutdown, I'm sure you saw. So can you explain this one to me? Because obviously I think Schumer was the one that wanted to, or did not want this to pass, or wanted it to pass, that they would shut it down. The Republicans ended up winning it and they kept going, right? This is for the finances, correct?
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with funding. So we did a funding bill back in the spring that kicked the can down the road till this March, and that was under Biden. So they passed all this government spending that they pretty much enshrined into the budget for the next year going forward. So no matter who won the election, they were stuck with whatever budget was coming. Now we get to the point we have to have a continuing resolution. They can't balance it. They got to live with the funding that we have that was approved by Congress during the last president for the next fiscal year. Okay? So now we're stuck with something till September 30th. All right? The current president said, do it. Approve the continuing resolution. Let's live with the budget we have. We're not going to be able to change it right now. Right? Let DOJ do what they're doing. Let them go in and start uncovering all this fraud and waste. Meanwhile, approve what we have. If not, if you don't do come September or March, is it tonight? If we didn't have it, the government would shut down, meaning they're not going to pay government employees. Please. They only maintain the essential, they call it the essential business.
Which is bad because of all the layoffs they've been doing, right, with DOJ. So more people leaving because of not being paid would be a shit show. Right.
So some Democrats, like the AOC crowd, they say shut it down. Nancy Pelosi, shut it down. Go ahead, shut it down. Shut the government down under President Trump, meaning you will grind everything to a halt. He won't be able to do anything. He can't do the court stuff. He can't appeal anything. You grind it to a halt. Somebody like Schumer is saying you can't have a government shutdown with our base because that's all our base. They're not going to have jobs. They're not going to get paid, right?
Right.
So the Democrats put themselves in a lose-lose situation, right? And Schumer gave a speech where basically he conceded that we can't do a shutdown. We can't afford it right now with this president and with DOJ. Like he dumped it on them, but basically the Democratic Party, which is in a tailspin. We said this before the election.
Yeah, we talk about it all the time.
I'm laughing at all these articles coming out now, but we've said this for months. I don't know how this party is still going. I really don't. I mean, I think you're going to see new faces, more moderate faces rise to the surface. Having said that, they're stuck. And the wisdom of Trump's administration said, and the quality of the people he has in his cabinet and in his department said, do it. And we're going to use things like the impoundment clause and the clawback. Because now, thanks to DOJ, they have the meat. Now you pass this, and over the summer they have to do things called appropriation bills, where they take the money and say, where's it going to go? And the president has the right, and I'm sure there'll be these little podunk judges like they're doing now, unconstitutionally trying to stop the executive, but he has the right to go in and say, you know what, no, I'm not funding that. So even though Congress passed it, he can say, no, we're not putting money towards that because it's fraud. We've uncovered it, it's fraud. And then you claw the money back. So, and then come next September, now you start again with another bill, budgeting, going forward.
When you say next September, you don't mean the one coming up. You mean the year after that.
No, I mean the one in September. So in the fall, you have another, because this is just a continuing resolution.
Right.
So they proved this. Now you go to September. And blah, 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 blah. In the past, had a balance. People have talked about a balanced budget amendment, meaning everything grinds to a halt until you balance the federal budget. Well, you know what? Now, in light of everything we're discovering with Doge, it's a total joke. We would have balanced it by sending, chunks of money out and just keep taxing citizens. And we're at the point where we need a full accounting. We're learning things that are ugly about our overinflated government, where how do you even budget things? Like, put it in your own world. How do you budget if you don't know what your credit card is? You don't know what your savings account is? You don't know what's in your checking account?
You're trying to budget with no information? Yeah.
Right. So now we're learning that, they're pulling they're pulling dollars out of their ass or funds out of their ass or these expenses. And now you can have some sort of, it won't be perfect, but some accountability. So the shutdown and that's why, Trump kind of trolled him saying, congratulations for passing this bill.
Yeah.
Schumer didn't want to do it, but you know what? They own that. They created this under Biden. They own it. The Republicans were stuck with it. And now we're putting a different spin on it and saying, all right, we can work with it now. We're stuck with it. And Trump knew it when he was campaigning, that he was going to get stuck with the budget of Biden. But, now we have the tools to claw back some of this money and maybe make some real changes. So the Democratic Party is imploding even more because you got somebody like Nancy Pelosi saying, absolutely not, we shouldn't do this. AOC is screaming. She's got a primary, Schumer. And Schumer,
Yeah.
He, as the majority leader or minority leader, he had to, we're going to pass it.
Gotcha.
And I believe there were quite a few Democrats who did vote for it.
Yeah, it was 17-13, 217 to 213 by the end, I believe.
Yeah, so they had a couple moderate Democrats who are starting to see the light. They got to get on board with this because their party is in disarray.
I think there was one Republican that voted the opposite, to...
Yes, that was Massey in the House.
Yeah.
Thomas Massey, yeah.
Gotcha. All right.
He had his reasons, he had his reasons because there's debt ceilings and stuff involved. But, sometimes you got to look at the bigger picture. You can't win it. If you can't win 100%, you got to if you can't win the war right now, you go for the battles.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
All right, Mom, we just did an hour 40, so we can end it there. Got through a lot today. Almost too much.
I was hoping to just put in the Starlink. Starlink made it up there.
Made it up to where?
That's
right. They got it, right?
Yeah, I wanted to bring that one in because, Grandma's been praying for these people up there. And I keep sending her articles. I don't think she sees it, but if you see her tonight, you got to show her the Starlink when they come in, and they're all celebratory. They're thrilled. I'm so happy for these people. They're getting out of there. And, people don't understand. I learned this, too, from Musk when I heard his interview. Your bone density gets affected.
Yeah.
I mean, these individuals are going to be in quarantine
for a while. They have to regain all the
2 months.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So it was nice thing to see.
Oh, so we can end it there, I guess. What do we have to promote, Mother? Next week's the live podcast.
Is it?
Right, today's the 15th.
Next week.
Yeah, next week's the live podcast, and then after that we're down in Florida. So hopefully next week we'll have a good one.
Live podcast.
I feel like I gained a little too much information today,
From what?
From just all the things we talked about. Pancake Day, we got, but yeah. So we'll end it there. The only things. Oh, why am I hearing myself twice? Mother. Oh, okay.
Yes.
Huh, that was weird.
I'm here.
Yeah, it was for some reason it was playing my headset twice. I guess something weird. But so the only things we have to promote, obviously, the last podcast. I put out. Let's see, what was last week's videos, Mother? Oh yeah, so podcast we had Bonesaw, which was a fun game, and then what was the other one? Do No Harm, which was a fun game, and then yeah, that's pretty much it. This week was kind of weird because we things I had to do outside and whatnot, so outside of YouTube. So yeah, but we're back on schedule.
Happy St. Patrick's Day, right?
Yes.
This is coming out tomorrow on one of the platforms. So happy St. Patrick's Day.
St. Patrick's Day.
17th.
And then, yeah, that's pretty much it. So social media, promo code, stream links, Discord down below. And hopefully we'll see you guys next weekend for the live podcast.